My name is Rafael, you're watching Rock and Roll Garage, and today we're going to talk about the interesting connection between the incredible Anthrax album Among the Living and the horror classic movie Poltergeist II. But first, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave your comment. Tell me if you knew about this or not. Well, in 1987, Anthrax released the album Among the Living, one of their greatest albums, the album that really helped them to stop playing in, small venues and pubs and, really small venues and start to play in bigger arenas and maybe even on stadiums. So that album was really important for the thrash metal group. And the interesting thing is that at least two members of the group we know for sure that are big horror movie fans and big movie fans. The guitarist Scott Ian, he's a huge horror movie fan. He even appeared in some horror movies. For example, he was a zombie in the Walking Dead series a few years ago. And Charlie Benante, the drummer, who also now is the drummer for Pantera, he is a huge movie collector, sci-fi, horror movies. He goes to many conventions about the theme. And the interesting thing is that since Anthrax's second album, Charlie Benante is who approves and gives the idea for every album cover they did. And the interesting thing about Among the Living is that I was listening to the album a few years ago, and I'm a huge horror movie fan as well. And it's interesting because heavy metal and horror movies walk hand in hand many times. And, when a person loves heavy metal, they usually also love horror movies. It's an interesting thing. And I remember to look at the cover of the album and see that man with the hat. He was wearing a black shirt and, a black suit, let's say. And, he's an old man. And I said, man, I'm a huge fan of the Poltergeist trilogy, the original one. The remake is not good, but I remember looking at that and I said, man, it looks like the character from Poltergeist II, which is the direct sequel for that first movie, classic movie that was co-written and produced by Steven Spielberg and directed by the late legendary Tobe Hooper, who also was the director of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original one. And I remember looking at that and I said, man, Poltergeist 2, the sequel that shows the same family moving to another house and being haunted by a few ghosts. And it is also haunted by the character Reverend Henry Kane, who was portrayed by the late incredible actor Julian Beck, which coincidentally looks a lot like the man on the cover, the album cover of Among the Living. And I said, man, there's gotta be a connection. They really look like each other. And if you haven't seen Poltergeist 2, his character is absolutely creepy. You get scared just by looking at it. And he was just amazing in the role of that Reverend Kane. And the interesting thing is that Charlie Benante confirmed they were inspired by that movie. And this is what he said in an interview with Robert Galuzzo in 2008. And he said that, he talked with Scott Ian and they were reading the same book by Stephen King, The Stand. And they were both really inspired by that book to write lyrics and to come up with the concept for the album cover. And, they didn't know both of them were reading it at the same time. So it was a really strange connection. And when it came to a while later, this is what he said. I remember at the time we saw this movie Poltergeist II, and the guy scared the hell out of us. His face was just so scary. We just wanted the cover guy to look like that. And he's among the living, So that's how that came about. And then I totally changed things up for the next record with the big yellow and red thing, which was State of Euphoria, released in 1988. And the interesting thing about this cover is that the album cover for Among the Living and State of Euphoria, they were both made by a guy called Don Bragington, who also was the responsible one for the classic Metallica album Master of Puppets. And talking a little bit more about the movie, that sequel was directed by Brian Gibson, and it was successful at the box office. It costed about $19 million and made over $75 million, so it was a success. And the another interesting thing is that that Benante also said about Among the Living. He said this in an interview with Pure Grain Audio in 2016. Is that Poltergeist had a very strong visual image to me, and I liked the way it looked. I was always into horror, and Among the Living was basically about good and evil. It was just about how much evil there is amongst us. So the next time you watch Poltergeist 2 and you look at Anthrax, Among the Living, there's a connection between that scary, creepy character from the horror movie and the old man on the cover of this incredible thrash metal album that is certainly one of the greatest ever made. And that's it. I hope you liked the video. Please leave your comment and tell me if you knew about this or not. And let's talk about it. Tell me if you watched the movie and you also is a big fan of that second movie. And the third movie is really good as well. I think it's very underrated. That trilogy is great, better than the Exorcist trilogy and many other horror movie sequels. And please like the video, leave your comment, and if you want to read more about this and many other cool stories about classic rock, hard rock, heavy metal, please visit rockandrollgarage.com. Okay, thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.